Hi, welcome to Life on the Rock, and tonight our guest is Maura Preszler. She is the founder of the nonprofit Made in His Image, which is an outreach for young women in their healing from various things. But she's going to talk about her spiritual journey and her own recovery from an eating disorder. So it'll be a great show for us tonight as she shares her wisdom and experience. Good to see you, Doug.
You too, Father.
What's up with Battle Ready these days?
Well, here we are, nearing the end of summer months, and Battle Ready rallies are lining up. If you haven't been out to our website, battlereadystrong.com, I'm going to encourage everybody to go out to battlereadystrong.com, take a look at under the event section, and see what we've got set up. We've got several conferences and different rallies into 2016 already that are lining up. A lot of rallies in different areas. You know, we've been doing these for the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, Father. And it's amazing. You know, last year we had done, I think, a total of 52. Well, by Easter of this year already we had done 40. I mean, the numbers of people who are really clamoring and crying out for that need to rally together in these times, as we've been talking, you know, week after week here in the show, about everything going on from the recent videos that started in the middle of the summer, early part of the summer, the Planned Parenthood videos coming out about just the barbaric nature, obviously, of abortion, but even then some, with regards to the selling of body parts of these babies, just the horrific situation. You know, this debacle, Iran treaty thing that's going on, what the Supreme Court does by picking a fight with God, saying it's going to redefine marriage and say to God, well, you know, all this happening, and a lot of people are having these conversations. What do we do? How do we deal with this? And the concern of the continued rise of persecution against Christians throughout the world, in their various forms, from the slaughter of so many and the enslavement and the abuse and the rape of so many over in the Middle East, and even what's been going on here in the States. So with all this going on, these Battle Ready rallies are about really looking at how we address this as spiritual warriors, turning to prayer first and foremost, being men, women, children of that spiritual attitude of a soldier that just is, we're going to storm the beach, we're going to take the hill, and we're not giving up. We're going to defend what's true, what's good, noble, and holy, and we're not going to retreat. We don't do that. We're Catholics. We're Christians. We do not retreat. We've been doing this for 2,000 years.
Right.
So yeah, Battle Ready rallies. Check out battlereadystrong.com event section and see what's going on, or call us, get a hold of us, and we'll come to your area, set some up there as well.
Right. And I thought an opening passage we could talk about some tonight from Scripture that relates to all these things, and I think in particular to our topic tonight about healing, is that we're made in the image and likeness of God, that men and women are made in this image. They have an inherent dignity that needs to be fostered and protected. Many things going on in the world today that does not foster that dignity. So we know from Genesis 1:26, then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him, male and female, He created them. That is so powerful, made in His image and likeness. Now we say, due to sin, original sin, man lost, the Catechism speaks of how we lost the likeness, which is the glory of God, sanctifying grace. We lost that with original sin. But the good news is that Christ restores and heals us to something even greater than what Adam and Eve had in the garden. That united with Christ by baptism and faith and all the sacraments, made one in Him, we are brought to this level of sonship in Jesus Christ to the Father, that He restores us to this unbelievable dignity, raises us up by grace. But we're always made in the image. No matter what sin we've committed or suffer, we're made in God's image, and He sees us in a very real way as His children. Now we're adopted by His grace, adopted in Jesus Christ, but He always loves us. And I want to make that point, because no matter what we've done, no matter what sin we've committed or suffered or what evil we've had to endure, God always loves us. And He offers us this share of communion with His Son, to have this incredible relationship, a filial relationship with the Father. And Maura is going to be talking about that tonight.
Right, right. And because of that very truth that you just pointed out, that is one of the areas that the enemy attacks most at. The despair, the discouragement, the shame when we do sin, when we do fall. Feeling as if we can't be loved, or we're such a great sinner, God could never forgive me. I've been to the confessional for the same sin over and over and over and over and over again, as some of you out there know what I'm talking about. we've done this. We've done this. We've been to the confession of the same sin. And yet every single time we go, we still hear those words of forgiveness, which is again that reminder from God, that very beautiful, powerful spiritual reminder that I love you this much. And nothing can stop that love. And the devil wants to destroy that confidence that we can have in God. And that's a big part of that spiritual battle. It's just not letting the devil get his foot on our heart.
Right.
And getting into that door and making us feel as if God would not forgive us and does not love us, because that is not the case. We are that well loved.
And as Christians, we have this great hope that what was lost in disobedience in Adam is restored by Christ's obedience, as St. Paul says, that where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. So God's offering us this path to communion with Him, this relationship with Him that heals us, restores us to dignity and value.
And even as the saints have said, and Our Lady becomes the second Eve, also her yes, her complete total yes, to compensate or make up for what Eve, falling into sin. So we've been, again, given the great gift of an incredible woman. I gotta love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a message of hope. Hopefully we have it every week, but this week especially from Maura Preszler. So don't go away. Back in a moment. Hi, welcome back. Tonight our guest is Maura Preszler. So Maura, welcome to Life on the Rock.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And tell us about this nonprofit organization you've started.
Sure. So Made in His Image, I started it in September of 2011, and it's a nonprofit organization that exists to foster hope and healing for women recovering from eating disorders and abuse, mental illnesses like depression, anxiety, and just to inspire them to turn from victim to survivor and help them discover their true worth and dignity in God as Father, and to discover who they are as His daughters.
So you have all kinds of topics, I know on the website, the blog roll you would call it? Or tell us about some of the topics you cover there.
Sure, we talk about forgiveness, chastity, modesty, what real beauty is, relationships, eating disorders, abuse, physical and sexual abuse, depression. Those are a few of the main ones.
And I was reading a lot of the entries, a number of the entries, and I was struck by the, you all are very honest over there and inspiring, speaking from a real experience of this journey. So it had a great authenticity to it, a feel to it. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, thank you. I really believe that the more open and vulnerable a person is, and I see that when I speak to college students, high school students, the more open I am with them, of course at an appropriate level, the more apt they are to, to really open up and to share and be like, hey, like I struggled with that too. Like, what did you do to overcome that? Or they see like a real person. Right. And I really believe, in our world today, it's just everyone, I'm fine, and we're all wounded, and we're all struggling with something, and we can help each other, all the glory to God.
So you go out speaking. Do you have other people that are part of the organization that are speakers?
No, it's just me.
Just you, and you're traveling kind of across the country, and
and I've been to Belize, and I've been to Uganda, actually. So those were our two international missions.
What was Uganda like?
It was incredible. I mean, the poverty was just, I've been to India, but so the poverty was close to what it was there. My sister is an occupational therapist, and she was there for a year helping the children who were handicapped, and I went over and saw her, and just loved the children. Just so many of them are orphaned, and they're just craving love. So just to show them that, to talk to them and spend time with them was just, you know, unlike anything else. I was one day with the girls at the orphanage, and I brought, like, you know, nail polish, just things that they don't have there. And you open a bottle and you have, like, you know, 30 girls just like right at your feet, and just to love on them in that way was really beautiful.
Right. And you have big plans. What are some of your hopes for the Made in His Image organization?
I do. Yeah. So right now I'm kind of in the, you know, build a social media platform, and God has really, really blessed it. I have no, you know, social media background, business savvy, anything. I was a simple English major. So we've really developed a social media platform, and the next step that I really want to take is to open a counseling center, so where there would be like 2 really solid Catholic counselors, so, you know, people could come and get help, and do that for a couple years, and then the ultimate goal is to build the first Catholic medical center for women to go to recover from eating disorders and abuse. Right. There's nothing like it in the world. So there are a lot of centers, but the key component, I think, you know, one of them is, of course, you know, healing comes from the Lord, and that was such a pivotal role played such a pivotal role in my recovery. And I think that, you know, have a center, to have the Blessed Sacrament always exposed, and to let the girls go to Mass, you know, would be huge.
Right. Let's talk about how big is the problem today? Like, do you know some of the numbers for eating disorders or abuse?
I do. There's over 10 million children today in the United States alone suffer from, you know, are exposed to domestic violence. 1 in every 4 women suffers from an eating disorder. 1 in every 4 women suffers from sexual assault. And over 40,000 Americans take their lives each year due to suicide.
Wow.
These are some very big numbers, and you can see the need there is really great. Yeah.
I know the number that's so shocking to me is the 1 in 4 of abuse. That is staggering to think about that. And we know our culture is not getting any healthier. Marriage is breaking down. There's greater objectification of people sexually and things. Lust is a huge problem in our culture. So these things are just increasing.
They are, unfortunately.
Yeah. But the good news is that Christianity speaks to this, and we address that, and that, you know, God wants to bring healing and mercy and to give grace, and our faith has so much to offer to a person that has suffered these things, doesn't it?
It does, and if He can bring me to a point where I am today, like, He can do anything for anyone. You know, I never dreamed that I'd be in a healthy relationship, married, and
married? How long have you been married now?
A month and 2 days.
All right. So well, let's talk about your story. Tell us your story. Start in the beginning there. Sure.
I grew up in a very dysfunctional home, and this really left me with produced a lot of ramifications. You know, I really struggled with the meaning of God, and if God really loved me, then why these things were happening. And I had a lot of anxiety. I suffered greatly from depression. I had an eating disorder in which I was 35 pounds lighter than I am today. I had chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. And, you know, through all these things, I kept asking myself, like, who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose in life? I put all of my identity in who I was as a runner and an athlete. And I just kept, you know, going downhill and sought to find these answers through empty promises, you know, that the world offers. And it wasn't until...
There was like a lot of inner pain that you were medicating with the eating disorder?
Especially with the eating disorder. You know, my life was so controlled, and the eating disorder was something that I could control. And, you know, I had a serious illness. I looked at myself 35 pounds lighter than I am today and really saw myself as fat. And that's a serious, you know, thing. And it wasn't until my junior year of college that I started getting involved with Focus, the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, through Varsity Catholic, which they minister to the student athletes on campus. and one of the missionaries invited me to a Bible study, and I just really had this thing against Bible studies and didn't want to go. And
but you were raised Catholic.
I was, yeah. But I had a lot of anger towards God, a lot of anger, and I thought that he had, shortchanged me, or, I was bad because all these things were happening. And I went to Bible study by the grace of God, and then later that summer I went to Calcutta, India, and served with the Missionaries of Charity through one of Focus mission trips. And it was in India that one of the missionaries, who's now a priest, Father Eric Clark, he talked about God the Father's love. And it just broke down so many walls. He was giving this talk, and I just remember sitting in the back of the room and just weeping. And he talked about, how God is loving and merciful and forgiving and gentle and understanding, and he's never going to leave. He's never going to take something away from you. Like, he's not a give and take God. And this was the first time I was hearing this. And I have goosebumps, just right now, because I remember I was like, this is what I've been searching for. And this is it. Like, this is it. I need to know this Father. And
what I find interesting about that is, I feel like I grew up hearing that, growing up in the 70s, the church, I remember making the banners, God is love, and all that. But it's like another thing to let it drop down to heart level, to kind of experience it, to know it on that level.
It really is, yeah.
And first, what attracted you to the Bible studies? What was it, the fellowship, or?
I think one of the missionaries, she was very persistent. All Focus missionaries are very persistent, and I'm really introverted. And this woman kept coming up to me and was like, just come to Bible study, you'll love it. And I kept telling them no, and they would see me at Mass, and I guess they were wondering, like, what is she doing at daily Mass if she's, why won't she come to Bible study? And they just kept asking. And then one of the women, she was going to start an athlete Bible study. So I thought, oh, if other athletes can, do this, then so can I.
And were you running track for? You
cross
were at
country,
Seton Hall?
yeah.
Oh, for Seton Hall, you ran cross country. So you were an accomplished runner then at that point.
Yeah, and I put everything, everything that I was, I put into my identity as a runner.
Yeah. So you went, and what was that? What was it like?
It was so great. Like, she was the Bible study leader. Her name was Mandy. She was, a couple years older than all of us, and she had a lot of life experience, and she just became my really good friend.
Right.
And she really invested a lot of time in me, and she showed me love, like, in a really powerful way. And I love that we could just sit there and, like, have fellowship. And I used to think Bible studies were weird, and but it wasn't like that at all.
As much time as you spent with the sports, the athletics and such, could people around you see that you were so hurt inside? Did she invite you to the Bible study because she sensed something or knew there was something there? Or did you look from the outside to people as if, oh, she's a great athlete, she's doing awesome, and she's got everything together? Because that's how a lot of people appear.
Absolutely.
And I know you know this now from your work, is from the outside, everything looks great. But a lot of times what we lack on the inside, we try to make up for on the outside in one way or another.
Yeah.
And was that the case with you? Could people see it, that there was something going on there, or were you hiding that pretty well?
I think from the outside looking in, it really looked like, okay, she's doing really well. She's, I was pre-med at the time, and, I got along with everyone, and I think people really thought, like, I was doing great. But I'm sure Mandy, she works with, these students all the time. She probably was like,
maybe she perceived something.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Do you think that, because I agree with Father Mark, a lot of times we grow up in the faith and we hear these things, God is love and he forgives and so forth, and we kind of some people just go through the motions of that, and it doesn't really sink in maybe, but you heard it once at this Bible study and something lit up. Do you think that had something to do with where you were at in the brokenness?
It was in India, in India, but also at the Bible study. But yes, I think at the time when we were in India, seeing this all this poverty, all this suffering, and I just saw these people, and I was like, if they can be joyful in this, you know.
So you could relate to their suffering in a different way, of your own suffering. In a different
way, yeah.
But still see that they were able to rise above it in some way.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, everyone wants just to find some sort of meaning, you know, if we can find a meaning to like all the madness, you know, it gave me something to hope for. So it was very powerful.
All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a moment with Maura Preszler. Don't go away, back in a moment. Well, welcome back, and we were just talking with Maura Preszler, and we were just talking about this experience you had in Calcutta with the priest giving the talk on the true face of the Father, so to speak, mercy. What did you do from there? How did that was an aha moment, but then what did you do?
Yeah, after the talk, I went up to him, and he, you know, I think everyone knows someone who just like radiates joy, and he does, and I was like, he knows the Father, and I want to know him. And I went up to him and I asked him, like, Eric, how can I get to know God like you know him? And he told me, he said, Maura, you know, we have to treat God like a friend. If we only spoke to him, you know, a friend once a month or once a week, we wouldn't really be best friends with that person. And he said, every day when you know, go before the Blessed Sacrament. And in India, we prayed the Holy Hour every day with the Missionaries of Charity. And this was the first time, you know, I'd ever prayed a Holy Hour, you know, all the way through. And
it's 120 degrees. I mean, how do you pay attention to what you're...
Yeah. You know, I'm looking at my watch and being like, oh, 12 minutes has passed. Like, we still have 48 more. Like, what do I do? And he took me through Acts. So the A stands for Adoration, which we just come before the presence of God and give thanks, you know, to him, and
being still.
Yeah, just really adore him. And then C for contrition, so sorrow for sins. T, thanksgiving, and thanking him for, you know, just all the gifts that we have. And S, supplication, so asking for things and graces. But really, a lot of healing came just by being still. It's something that I had never done before. And I would just go every day to the Blessed Sacrament. When we came back from India, I just really felt that hunger for the Blessed Sacrament and would go every day without fail for an hour. And I would just sit there and I would say, you know, Father, you see me as your daughter, and I don't know what that looks like. What does that mean? Or you see me as beautiful, and all I see when I look in the mirror is ugliness. Like, show me what it really means to be beautiful. And I just asked those questions, and I would just sit there and be still. And it's incredible, you know, what God did in that time and continues to do.
Would you hear anything, or would you?
Sometimes, like, sometimes. And I would just feel him, like, in my greatest moments of pain, especially from, you know, all the trauma and abuse that I had experienced. I would really feel God holding me through those moments. And it was very, very powerful. And he continues to do so.
And I wanted you to talk about that tonight, because I think it gives a game plan for maybe a young person watching. You know, what do you do in adoration? You have, like, you can go to your church. They might not have exposition of the Blessed Sacrament, the Eucharist and a monstrance, but they have the tabernacle there. You can go before our Lord. He's truly present there, body, blood, soul, and divinity. And Maura did this acts, adoration, contrition, thanksgiving, supplication, you know, asking for something you need, or healing, or praying for others, asking God for a special grace for somebody else. I like that concrete practice, that it almost strikes me like as an athlete would approach it. You know, this is the routine. We're going to do this every day. And And we need discipline like that in the spiritual life, I think, to grow.
Yeah, and it just really grounded me for everything that God had, you know, to prepare me for, and it was just amazing, like what God did through that time.
But your healing just didn't end with the spiritual part there. What happened next for you?
Yeah, after college, a year or two after college, I went to IPS, the Institute of the Psychological Sciences in Arlington, Virginia. I suffered greatly from post-traumatic stress disorder, from the abuse and the abusive environment. And I didn't know like what I had, you know, like I needed some diagnosis. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night from nightmares and, you know, just be crying, and I just knew something wasn't right. I suffered greatly from depression, and I went there and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I had already been diagnosed with depression, and they really helped me with like a game plan of how to proceed. And I'm a planner, like I like to have like a plan in place, like, okay, tell me what I need to do and we'll get this done. And at first I was really embarrassed because my whole life I'd kind of been labeled as that girl with the eating disorder, you know, and now I had, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder, and it really hurt me, like what they were saying, but I saw that they really did care, and they wanted to help, and they helped find me a doctor in Nashville, Tennessee.
So you went to them like for a week or two?
It was a weekend, it was a full 2-day like evaluation, and then you go back a couple weeks later and they give you the results and what they recommend. Okay. So they recommend that I leave New Jersey, the source of you know, the trauma, and they helped find me a doctor in Nashville. And I spoke with him, the doctor in Nashville, once on the phone, and he said, I think I can help you, and they sent him, you know, my evaluation, and a week later I packed everything I owned into my little Honda and drove to Nashville. So it was quite the adventure.
And talk about, you write about that in one of your blogs, about that motivation to want to get to recover.
Yeah.
That desire that you wanted to get married, right? And you wanted the fullness of life. Talk about that kind of desire that you had.
I did. I've always wanted to be a wife and mother. And I had been in relationships that, you know, I have also suffered from a borderline personality disorder, which is very common. You know, 95% of victims who have been abused suffer from it. It's like a come here, I'm gonna push you away type mechanism, like with rejection. And always when I would get close to a person, I would always like push them away. And I saw this as like a recurring problem, and I just knew that unless I dealt with this, I could never be in a healthy relationship. So every day when I would go to Adoration, I would close my eyes and picture, you know, being able to walk down the aisle and meet my husband at the end there. And it was so beautiful because right before I walked down the aisle just about a month ago, like I saw like everything, like all these flashes, you know, of everything that I had been through, just like God placed before me. And he just said like, see, Maura, like I turn everything into beauty. And it was really powerful.
That is. Replant what the locusts have eaten, right? Is that the phrase?
Yeah.
I know, Doug, you had a question.
Something you said more at the beginning of the show I thought was powerful. This website is you said, to inspire people to change from the victim to the survivor. And that to me is one of the most powerful things, to give that fighting spirit inside the heart and the soul, to not lay down and just let the trials and the challenges and the darkness overrun us. But you're trying to inspire them to come out of that. So what could you say, now that you've revealed a little bit at least about that, to inspire those who might be going through or have been through the same thing?
Yeah, I would definitely encourage them to reach out and tell someone. I think that's one of the first steps, is to tell someone, just to let it out. Abuse, addictions, disorders are often really hidden, and what I love about Made in His Image is we really want to like uncover that darkness. And the Lord wants there to be light in that brokenness. And when we keep things hidden, you know, it just gives Satan more room to fester and breed. And just to offer them hope, you know, like if God can work in my life the way he has, like he can work in anyone's. And if you give God an inch, you know, he's going to give you 10 miles. We just have to be available to receive what he wants to give us, and to reach out to, you know, also someone just to share their story, but also to a psychologist or, you know, a 12-step program or something to help hold you accountable in your recovery, because recovery is a lifelong, you know, journey, and that's really important. It doesn't just go away.
I know, I heard something I liked about that, is that we're hurt in relationship, we're wounded in relationship, we're also healed through relationship. So it's usually not a case, I mean, certainly God can do anything, he's not bound by anything, but usually we're healed together. It takes other people walking with us, helping us, that it's more than something we can overcome of our own, but we need help from others. And
absolutely, yeah. And even the priest in our homily for our wedding, he opened the homily and he said, marriage is a healing ministry. Of course, we need to be as whole as we can be to go into it. But it was really beautiful how he prefaced that, and how I see just this next level of healing, you know, in a marriage relationship.
And your husband's a devout Catholic, and talk about that, you know, dating, chastity, the healing that can happen there in that kind of relationship you all had before marriage and into marriage.
It's really powerful. We had a really awesome, you know, dating relationship, and it's just really awesome when two people are, you know, running after the same goal, and you're not dragging the other person to mass or being like, come on, please go to adoration with me. Like, to have that man lead, and Michael is a phenomenal leader. He really does that really well, and he led me closer to the Lord. And, you know, I always tell girls that I speak to, like, never marry a man who doesn't lead you closer to God.
That's quite a statement. I mean, you did work with Focus, adoration hours, daily mass, and this man led you closer to God.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How did that look like? What did that look like?
Just, you know, marriage brings on a whole new, or even just, you know, in a relationship, just a whole new way to love. And I just see that now, even, you know, being married, like every little thing you do affects, you know, the other person. That could be positive or negative. And he calls me to holiness in, you know, a really deep way, to get out of myself and serve and be Christ to the other.
How did you know after you know, going through the trauma and the recovery and such, when you met this man, that this guy really loved you, that this was authentic, this was genuine? What did he do? Let's get deep here. What did he do to win your heart? To really let you know, you are my queen, and I shall defeat any foul enemy that tries to harm you, which every man should be saying to the ladies in his life every day of their lives. What did he do?
Well, I knew on the second date that we were going to get married.
So he was leading you, right?
He made it really abundantly clear.
Well, so I've always prayed for, like, specific things, and one of the things that, you know, from the abuse, it was really hard for me to deal with physical touch, and I always prayed that the man that I would marry, he would ask if he could hold my hands. And I've gone on a lot of, you know, first and second dates, and on the second date, he did exactly what I prayed for in adoration. Like, I asked God that he would whisper in my ear and ask if he could hold my hands. And when he did that, like, I just felt this presence from God the Father, me like, this is the man that you are going to marry. And it was really tested a lot, because we did break up, you know, in the spring, and he discerns the religious life, and all along I'm like, God, what are you doing? You know, and I went on other dates, and it wasn't the same. Michael just, he has such a joyful, positive outlook on life, and he helps make me come alive. I'm very introverted. He's very extroverted, and he just calls me to God in a really powerful way.
You refer to God the Father frequently, and I know on the blog you talk about the father wound, and that was a big part of your healing and recovery. Tell us about that father wound we hear so much about today.
Yeah, I really truly believe, and Pope Francis has even said it, so don't listen to me, listen to him, that the father wound is the biggest wound in our world, and he gave an audience in Rome at the beginning of the year to fathers, and he talked about a fatherless society. Because of a fatherless society, we have so many orphans. And I truly believe, to the thousands upon thousands of women that I've spoken with, that is the core issue that we are dealing with. Men are not stepping up. They are not leading. They are not leading and affirming their sons and daughters in the ways that they need to be affirmed. And, every little girl, she looks up to her dad and she wants to know that she's beautiful, that she's loved, that she's valued, that she's enough, that she's worth fighting for. And when a girl does not have that, she seeks to fill this void in her life with drugs, alcohol, sex, eating disorders. And this leads to depression and anxiety. And you just go deeper and deeper into trying to fill this actually beautiful need that God has put on every feminine heart, this desire to know that they are wanted, that they are loved. And unfortunately, in our society, so many fathers are leaving or absent, or parents are getting divorced. And it's a huge problem. Right. And I'm not saying that every woman who, struggles with those issues didn't have a good father. Like, they may very well have, but with what I've seen with my work and my research, it definitely is the #1 cause of so many of these, calamities that we are, as a society, are struggling with. We need leaders.
And part of your healing with that wound is forgiveness, right? Tell us about the forgiveness that you had to practice and experience.
Absolutely. That was one of the biggest things that my doctor, when I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and went to 2 years of therapy there, he challenged me to forgive. And when I thought about all the men that had misused me or been abusive, I really struggled with that. Like, I really struggled with forgiving. And one of my favorite books, well, my favorite, is The Return of the Prodigal Son by Henri Nouwen.
That is very good. I've read that.
Yeah. My fiance, my husband, he gave me the painting when he proposed to me.
Oh, right.
It's really beautiful. But it talks about how we are all called, at one point we are all the prodigal son, and we are separated by God's grace by sin, and then we're all the elder son, and we suffer with rejection and not being good enough, and then we're all called to become the father. And when I read this, in the book, it really inspired me to want to forgive and to want to show God the Father's love to all those that, come in contact with me. And that challenged me to forgive.
Yeah, that's such an interesting shift from victimhood to giving and forgiving others, to forgive people that have harmed us, and just to make that act of forgiveness, maybe in prayer or in person, if you're able to.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thought. It's it's a choice. Every day when I wake up, I make that choice, or I don't make that choice. And it's a grace, and it's definitely a choice, just like love, to forgive. And it's really powerful. It's a powerful component in a person's journey of healing.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Maura Preszler, so don't go away. Back in a moment. Well, welcome back. One thing I wanted to talk about, you mentioned to me earlier, was to see even a beauty in suffering that your counselor helped you to see, or a Catholic counselor. Tell us about that.
Yeah, on one of the last therapy sessions that I had with him, he turned to me and he said, you know, Maura, everyone suffers, but it's what we do with our suffering that makes us a saint. And he really inspired me, like throughout the whole 2-year journey, to see beauty in my suffering. And that's why I started Made in His Image, because, you know, I've been through experiences, and, you know, there are plenty of women out there that have been through far worse. But if we can come together and, you know, make some sense out of this madness, you know, that we've been through, then it's beautiful. And I look at, you know, my life and where it's brought me, and I wouldn't wish abuse or an eating disorder or mental illness on anyone, but I look at what I've been through, where I am, where I want to go, and I wouldn't trade anything from the past to know the Father's love like I know him. Like, there is no greater gift in the world to me than that. Like, I know he is my Father, and it's so powerful, and there is beauty in that. And sure, I could sit there and say, I wish I had a perfect family and maybe I would have discovered God's love that way, but I didn't, and no one does. And I'm grateful, like, for my suffering.
Because it's part of your story. It's how God used it to lead you to him, and he was present in it in some way. And
it did, and it's just really powerful when you know, there's a real tendency towards, you know, drawing into self, especially when someone is really suffering, when someone's really hurting. And the challenge there, especially to, you know, us Catholics, is to turn outward and say, like, how can I give? How can I serve you? And when we do that, we take the focus off me and, you know, see the other person there. And it's really powerful when someone's able, with God's grace, to do that. It really gets you out of, like, the rut that you're in, and to see someone else. Right.
Those are such classic themes of a healthy spiritual life, of giving and finding God in the cross and weakness and things. And I think it's a sign of true recovery, you know, that you've experienced, that you wouldn't trade it, because you have God now, and that fullness makes everything worth it, right? That experience you have now.
It does. It really does. And I'm just really grateful for the cross. And every time I finish the rosary, you know, I always say that, like, Father, thank you for the cross, because it led me to you, and it led me to the beautiful life that I have now.
And I think, too, an amazing part of it, you know, God is so good that even our sins that we repent of, that experience can be used to help somebody else.
Absolutely.
You know, God led me out of a sinful life, and I can use my experience maybe to help somebody else. So again, to shift to that thing of giving and sharing, and that because, you know, everything in our life can have value and beauty to it, and I think that's one of the most powerful messages of Christianity, that we speak to suffering, we speak to the presence of evil in this world, our experience of it. I'd like to just hit a practical point about the media. I love to kick the media. It's an easy thing to ridicule, but it really is doing damage, especially to young women. What are some of the things you see?
Yeah, the media is a huge problem, especially with, you know, so many women, myself included, when I was really struggling. You know, we don't have this vision of what beauty is, and we turn to the media and we say, oh my gosh, like, we have to look like the latest, you know, 100-pound celebrity on the cover of People magazine. And, you know, these vulnerable girls are turning to a photoshopped model and thinking that they have to look like that. It's just so unrealistic. And you know, beauty, like, I love to tell girls, like, beauty radiates from your heart onto your face. And when you truly believe that you are beautiful, you just have a presence, have a demeanor about you that other people are going to naturally be drawn to. And, you know, I also tell that to girls in regards to, you know, boyfriends and, you know, relationships. So many of these girls tell me like, oh, if only I had a man, you know, then it would be enough. And I'm like, no, like that's totally, that's not true. And I think about, you know, my husband. He was the first person that told me that I was beautiful, that I really believed it, because after my conversion, I knew who I was as a daughter of God. And you will never believe that a man tells you that you're beautiful unless you first believe that you are a beloved daughter of God and what that really means. And that's the problem with, you know, the media and society. It's feeding these women all these lies that are just sinking them deeper into that void that they need filled.
And even the actresses and the models don't even look like this with camera angles, Photoshop and things like that. But I think that's such an important point about, you know, get the God piece first and then have a relationship, you know, if that's what you feel called to that vocation. That's so, because you need to get certain things from God, that He can only really fill that space in your heart.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my married friends, you know, say that, like, and now that I'm married, you know, I see it in a different way. Like, a man is only human. He's going to let you down, and you know that.
Do you have a response for that, Doug?
Yeah. You're marrying a sinner, you know?
Yeah. My doctor always used to say that, like, you know, you bring two imperfect people together, and, you know, he said that about my husband and I. You're either a match made in heaven or a match made in hell. You know, you really need to, your relationship with God has to be number one. The other person can't give you that.
You speak about the men a bit there, and you've got something on your side about what men are really to do. I mean, and we're wired to lead, to protect, to defend. It really is in us. A lot of guys have lost that, or they let themselves be, I just very simply would say a lot of guys let themselves be neutered, even sometimes by the women in their lives, as to what a man's supposed to be as a protector, especially spiritually, but also physically. Someone breaks in my house, I need to be the one, you know, that becomes, you know, the sheepdog at the door. Someone trying to mess with my flock, I've got to react the right way, obviously, you know, according to what's moral and just. However, do you think that it's true that a young girl, if her father shows her the love, tells her she's beautiful, tells her what real beauty is, I mean, and really instills that, and could you speak that to the audience about all the men out there that need to hear from someone who's been broken about the importance of a father, of a husband, of a boyfriend properly speaking about true beauty to the ladies in their lives? Because that's a big part of protecting and defending that a lot of men don't think about. It's not just a physical defense, it's defending and protecting the ladies from the lies of the world that you just described come through the media, for example.
Absolutely. Men really need to, like I say it on, you know, I'm made in His image. Men are really called to lead, provide, and protect. And they need to be, you know, fathers need to be affirming their daughters, telling them that they're loved, that they're beautiful. And, you know, the same to your wives and your girlfriends. And when you do this, like, I really believe that women will follow. Like, women are looking for, they're looking to be led. And, you know, that's the man's role. But then again, it goes back to the whole father wounds. When a boy doesn't have a father, what does he turn to? And boys need to know that they're enough, that they have what it takes. And that's why abuse is so, you know, generational, because there's such a lapse in fatherhood. So we really need to be praying for these men to step up. And I would just encourage, you know, the men out there, if you don't have the presence of a father, to look to a role model, an uncle, a brother, someone older in your life that you can learn from to know how to properly serve and lead.
Because you're right, that's a key part of it, is that the men do need to be saying, it's not just reaffirming my daughter, but I have 4 sons, and I've been telling them for years, your job as a man is to protect, to provide, to lead. It's to be that image of God. It's to be that just that strong presence that anybody around you that God has entrusted your care at that given time knows they can rely on you.
Absolutely.
And so we fathers need to be passing this on to our sons.
Most definitely. And like I said, when a boy doesn't have that, he, you know, he just has this question mark over his head and
Right.
is like, what do I do? Like, how do I act?
Where's my masculinity come from? Yeah.
Maura, can you give us, we just have a minute left, can you give us the website and what person can find at your website?
Sure, it's madeinhisimage.org. And we have, you know, just a plethora of blog posts and ways that people can get involved and donate.
Support the ministry. You're available for talks.
Yep, I travel and speak to college students, high school students, and people, you know, email me and book me for talks and things like that. But one of the biggest things is just financial support so we can keep going. And I want to do so much with the organization, but that requires, you know, money.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll be praying for you and your work.
Thank you.
May our Heavenly Father shine His face upon you. May He give you His peace. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We'll see you next week.